Hello guys, so we are going to today discuss about the active and standby failover in firewall. We have already discussdiscussed, and it is similar to the high availability gateway protocols, like we have HSRP and we have VRP and GLBP also. But in this, what we are going to discuss, similar fashion, but in firewall, when we talk about the active and standby, here we don't have to use kind of a protocol here like HSRP or RP. It is just like a configuration. One firewall will configure as in the active, and one firewall will configure as in the standby. So I'll draw the topology first. Let me just go ahead and make the topology here in GNS, and then I'll probably just work on it. So for that, what I need is I need initial few routers as per the previous examples. We will be following the same topology. So we have R1, we have R2, we have R4. We'll make it a little smaller so that we can zoom it later. We have R2, and I would be needing a firewall also, so we'll take one firewall. And so since we have to take two firewalls, so the logical diagram will be altogether different, but if we talk about the the physical diagram, what we should be having is exactly this. So probably we'll do like this, and this is outside. All right, so that we can discuss which firewall we want to make it active and which firewall we want to make it as a standby. That we can discuss, and we can change it also. All right, coming to the physical connectivity wise, so the gig 0/0, which is connected to F0/0, gig 0/1 connected to R1, gig 0/2 connected to this way. Since we have the active and standby, so this I'll connect to F0/1, F0/1 to this. Sorry, not F0/1 to this, and also gig 0/2 to our DMZ. So I'll change the name over here. Yes. Okay, we can do it this way. All right, I'll do this way. Name I'll change to text edit or 4. Is it like okay? R4, change it because this is what we have been using anyways. So yep, there has to be one connection between the firewall and this. So we'll say gig 0/3 and gig 0/3 here also. Okay. Now there are some the limitations in the active and standby topology, which we'll be discussing in a moment. But let me first bring these devices up, and also let me zoom in. Before that, just want to specify this is your inside, okay, and this is your outside. outside, and this is DMZ. Security level is going to be same 100 or 80, 50, and 0. All right, and the IP addresses schema is going to be same. So I'll use 10.101.0/24. All right, so one more thing here. I'm sorry for that. It seems we have to use a switch also here, because the switch only, using switch only, we can connect, because that's the kind of a limitation of active and standby. These two particular network, if we see here, right, this is going to be in the different network, and this is going to be the different network because it is connected to the router. Now, all right, guys, so I believe you guys are able to see the desktop, correct, the topology? Great. So what we're going to discuss today is the failover, active and standby firewall. This is what we're going to discuss. So active and standby. So what do you mean by active and standby? As you see here, it's almost everything is same what we have discussed previously. All right. So here we have R1, which is the part of inside. Should be written somewhere also. And this is DMZ. Same. And we have outside. R2 is in outside, right? But earlier we were doing the lab on one firewall, using one firewall, right? But consider like this firewall is not there. Okay, so if this firewall is not there, in that case, what if some hardware problem, I mean because of some hardware issue, could be anything. So in that case, this firewall is down, the whole production is down. It's just because one firewall you haven't maintained the redundancy. So when we talk about the networking, redundancy is very important, isn't it? We should have the redundant link. We should have the redundant hardwares. We should have redundant gateways. In fact, using HSRP and then GLBB protocols and all. So we do maintain in networking. It's very important to maintain the redundancy. So the same thing, what we are going to discuss here is maintaining the two firewalls. One firewall will act as an standby, and one firewall will act as an active. So the initially all traffic will go through the active. So for example, if this is active, okay, so if this is active, in that case all traffic will go from the active firewall, and if active is not available, the same traffic will be kicked in towards the standby. Standby will become active. Now the question is, this firewall, the one which is active, all right, how about the configuration? Are you going to configure parallelly these two firewalls? So I mean the what all protocol I'm going to configure in this firewall, the same we have to configure here also. Is it like that, or that's something that you have to make all the changes in the active firewall, and the information and the configuration of firewall will be replicated automatically to the secondary, right? Yes, this is what gonna happen. So we have to manage only, yeah, in there we have to set up them together first. We have to set up that, okay, this is your active firewall, this is your secondary firewall or the standby, right? But once it is set up, All right, you don't have to configure anything in the firewall. It will take all configuration automatically. It will take all configuration automatically. Okay. So over here, when we talk about, again, the physical diagram, when we talk about the connectivity between the devices, the connectivity is pretty much we have to follow the guidelines. As you see, the interface is what we are using here. Let me, is that this one? The interface is what we are using here. These interfaces exactly should be same on both the firewall. Means if gig 0/1 is going to the inside, in that case, in one firewall, so in the other firewall also gig 0/1 should go to the inside. I don't see inside written somewhere, so let me say inside, right? Similarly, if gig 0/0 is going to outside, in one firewall, so in that case, another firewall also gig 0/0 should go to the outside. If gig 0/3 is connected to the if gig 0/2 is connected to the DMZ, then another firewall also it should get connected to the DMZ, which means they should be in the same network. Let me draw this. This should be in the same network. Okay. So if you're configuring IP address, maybe let's say this is active, and if you're configuring IP addresses and 10 here, so we'll configure 1 and 11. So they are in the same broadcast domain. They are in the same network. Similarly, they will be also in the same network, and they will also be in the same network, right? So that's the guidelines. That's the kind of prerequisite that we have to follow. All right, now the failover will be happening based on what? So anyways, we'll follow some task also to set it up from the beginning, from the scratch. So what I'm going to do here is going to configure, it seems this routers are like, okay. Okay, it's inside is there, but it's
So Ravi, what about the model of the firewall? Like even both should be of the same model and same version.
Same version, same license, everything.
no, I mean the license version could be different. It will work. Model also could be different. It will work. Most of the time it works actually, but it is recommended actually to have the same model what you are using in active, as in cluster. But the version, if it is running, yes, the version talking about it should be, if you are running 8.3 onwards, so on both the firewall it should be running same, because the command what you're going to enter here might not be accepted here because of the old version. So we have to make sure that the the commands are accepted on both the firewalls. Clear? All right. So let me power on the devices. So all right, this is what we have actually configured in the and this is what our topology is. So in this topology, we're going to use the switches because they have to be in the same network. As a prerequisite, we have already discussed the requirement. We have already discussed about. I have configured this R1, R2, and R4 as of the initial configuration as per the IP address schema. We are using loopback also. So loopback 0, we are using 1.1.1.1, and we are also in R4. We are using 4.4.4.4, and To loop back, we are using 2.2.2.2. Okay, this is as per exactly the same of DMZ inside and outside. This is going to be our firewall, so I will say ASA active, ASA active, and ASA standby. This is going to be a standby. So let's go to the ASA, which one it is. Alright, so both the firewalls are actually same. There is no configuration also. So what I have to do, I have to perform some initial configuration in the the firewall one. As you notice here, the IP, this name of the firewall, it is default Cisco ASA. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to configure. So before that, I want to make sure that these are the two, we are configuring it to the correct firewall. So I'll have console to this, and then so that's my firewall. What I'm going to do, let me share first the task, what we're going to follow. So as you see this, the configure AC interface as follows. That's a physical interface E0/0. This is in my bad. It says 0 is not in it. E/0 is it says 0 here, 1 and 2 DMC. So E/1 is the part of N security level 80, and these are the IP addresses that I have to configure. So in the primary, I have to configure 101.10, and secondary we have to configure 11. Primary also on this, we have to configure 102.10 and 104.10, right? Configure ASA device to backup ASA firewall in the event of failure. Configure interface E0/3 as the failover link. So if we have noticed, we have also gig 0/3, which are connected, both the firewalls are connected to each other. And this interface will be used to transmit failover control messages. Means that that interface is going to use for all the failover messages control, as well as it is going to deliver all the configuration what you have. Assign a name of LAN FO and active IP address in this 254, say SA1 could be inactive 10 and standby 11. Authenticate the failover control messages using the key of Cisco 987. Configure host name as an ASA FW. All right, so let's go ahead and configure the firewall first. So firewall host name is FW, right? We have to configure the interface E0/, here it is not E but gig 0/0. IP address 10.1.102.10, because this is your active, no shutdown. Security level or name if outside. This caps is not mandatory even if you're configuring outside, but it will take as an the lowercase itself. Yep, the security level 0 by default assigned to the outside. No shutdown interface gig 0/1, and name if inside name if inside, And security level as per the task, it is should be 80. IP address 10.1.101.10, and no shutdown interface dig0/2, which is name if DMZ. Security level by default also assigned to DMZ 0. We'll configure security level as in 50. No shutdown, IP address 10.1.104.10. So to have the reachability anyways, I have to configure the static entries also, right? So route, let's say 1.1.1.1, and here, sorry, I'm missing some. Okay, route inside and 1.1.1.1, and then the net mask 255.255.255.0, and the next hop 10.1.1.101.1. Inconsistent address in mask, right? Okay, 1.0, 1.0, 2 for 2.0, 2.2.2.2.2. I'm sorry, not this. It should be outside. So outside. And third 4 and 4.4.4. I believe this is basic configuration we all are aware of. We have already done this. DMZ. So DMZ. Show route. Okay. So as per the expected traffic, if we log into the R1, which is the part of inside, let me do ping 10.1.101.10, which is the firewall's IP address. We have reachability, and also do ping 2.2.2. It might not work because this is a new firewall, and we might have to configure the inspect ICMP under the global policy map, or you can configure the the access list as well. So anyways, I need to have the reachability, so I'll configure access list itself. So access list into inside to out, extended.
We are configuring on
Up, sorry, access list. Okay, so I'm configuring R1. So let me do one thing. Let me telnet that. I haven't configured for the telnet also. So what I'll do is I'll configure also firewall so that I can telnet this device. Okay, so telnet and host name, IP address. So telnet 1 dot, or can be, let's say 10.1.101.1. So this guy can telnet subnet 255.255.255.255 on the interface inside. So which means this guy is allowed to telnet. We have to configure username, Cisco, and password, Cisco. Cisco. The same. There is no line VTY just like a router, so I don't have to configure anything here. Let me now initiate the telnet so that we can configure it here itself. 10.1.1.101.10 and Cisco. Enable. We have access to the firewall. So what we have to do is we have to configure the access list in out extended permit IP any.
Ravi, I'm not able to see your screen.
Is it? Okay. Because we were actually I shared this firewall screen. All right. So I configured access list this one. I'll also configure not to have the any reachability issue. I'll also configure out to in, so that all traffic should also from outside to inside also out to in should also be allowed, and out to DMZ also, because here as of now our objective is not to, and DMZ to out, DMZ to out. And access group, let's say DMZ to out, and interface and DMZ access list. So never mind, anyways, this I'm just trying to configure the in interface outside out to in. So access list in interface, sorry, access group in interface outside. Inside to outside also we have. Okay, so now I should have reachability. Let me go to R1, ping 2.2.2.2. I have reachability. Ping 4.4.4.4. Yep, we do have. I should go to the R2 also and check this out. Do ping 1.1.1.1. Yes, and 4.4.4. So we have all our reachability, right? So reachability will not now come in a picture or will not disturb us, or just troubleshooting the basic, the reachability issue. All right. Now let's again go to the firewall and telnet. Cisco. So coming to the task. So task we are aware of, right? So we have already configured as per the, as per this. We haven't configured the 11 as of now. Why? It's because if we configure 11 there, what will be the impact? Do you think there will be any impact? Because the gateway what we have configured there is the IP address 254.101.10, and it is asking to configure another IP address as in 101.11. Okay, now the question is, what default gateway are you going to give? So if we are going to configure this way, right? So the basic, as I told you, the basic configuration we have to configure. So let me also go to another VNC. I believe you guys are able to see it. Enable conflicting in host name ASA firewall. So here what I'm going to do is gig 0/0 IP address 10.1.1.102.11, because they're the part of the same network, isn't it? It's IP address 10.1.1.11. Name if outside and no shutdown. Interface gig 0/0, which is going to the inside, no shutdown. Inside.
So even we have configured the bow on the south side.
Sorry.
These are both are same interface.
Yeah, on the both the router it is same interface. Gig 0/2. No shutdown. And 2 is going to the DMZ. So, and name it.
No, the interface which you have configured inside and outside, you have made it on the same interface, 0/0.
Now this is another firewall, right? We are configuring
Okay.
another firewall.
Okay.
Okay, interface security level. So as per this, we have to make it.
Okay.
Right? So all right. So this is done. Configure ASA2 device to backup ASA1 firewall in the event of failure. All right. So let's now, because we have to set it up, for the initial to failover, right? So that it can fail over. All right. Where are we? Just hold on. In order to configure as per the task, right? What task says that, let me configure the first host name. Host name is firewall. What it says, configure the interfaces as per the requirements. So what I remember, interface gig 0/0, which is name if outside, right? And security level 0. We have to configure IP address here, 102.10. This is your primary IP address. What previously we configured the firewall, another firewall also, right? But we're not supposed to configure another firewall, because this is the active firewall which we are going to configure. So only we have to set up this IP address and everything. It'll get copied there to the secondary also. Here I have to say who is your secondary, or what is the secondary IP address, or standby, right? Or yep, standby is 10.1.102.11. Okay, so this is 102.10 is my primary, and 102.11 is the standby. No shutdown. Name if we have already created, right? We'll go under interface gig 0/1, no shutdown, and name if what it should be inside. So inside security level, it is asking to configure 80, and the IP address. So for IP address, we'll say 101.11 is standby, and 101.10 is the primary. No shutdown. Interface gig 0/2, which is DMG. Name if DMZ. Security level 50. No shutdown. And we're going to configure the same here. So 104.11 standby, and 104.10 is the primary.
Ravi, this configuration is an active firewall, right?
This we are configuring in active, yes, in one router, one firewall that is active, or that is going to be active, we can say. Is it clear
Yeah.
so far? All right. The other interface we are also aware of that we have to also configure the other interface. I'm not going to configure any other IP address there, but what I have to do is I have to shut down. Now this interface particularly is going to, work here. So what I'll do, let me, anyways, I know shut it down. Let me enable telnet 1 of 10.1.101. So 10.1.101.10, and then subnet mask 255.255.255.255 inside. So file share now. Username and password I forgot. Username. Not only username, but it should be one inside. And dot one dot. All right, so we have the access. Show run interface IP, show interface IP brief. These are the interfaces. Remember this is the interface which we are going to use for the failover, which is unshut. So this I have to perform on, in fact, this interface. Okay, as in this particular firewall. All right. Now what I'm going to configure, I'm going to configure the failover related commands, right? So we'll configure here failover. There are so many things, but since it is LAN, I'm going to specify the LAN and interface. So configure the interface and VLAN to be used for the failover communication. No, I'm not going to configure this, but I'm going to configure the unit, because this particular interface will come in a picture. This will come in a picture with the, when I'm configuring the gig 0/3 interface unit, and then primary, because this is going to be a primary. So I'll say this is going to be primary. Failover, there are so many, failover. Let me anyways discuss. We have the interface also, interface policies, IPsec key, MAC notification, replication, standby. So we might not be using everything here, but most of the options we'll be using. So failover, and then again LAN. Now I'm going to say interface. Who is going to be your interface? The interface name, because as a task says, put the name as in this is the interface name, and this is the specify physical or sub interface. So what I'm going to specify here, you don't have to write gig ethernet, something like that. Gig 0/3 will work fine, because let me show you the topology once quickly. This interface gig 0/3 is going to act as in the failover for between the two firewalls, right? So that's what we are configuring there. Gig 0/3 non-failover interface config is cleared on gig 0/3 and its sub interfaces. So the main interface as well as some sub interfaces got cleared, all configuration. Right now, I'll configure what is the IP address there. So failover interface. So rather saying failover now LAN, as we have been configuring this, I'll say interface. So failover interface IP. This is the name which we have created. It will take by default. It's right. Specify the IP address. So 10.1.101 dot. Which IP address we have to configure? Not this. 10.254.10. This is the IP address I'm configuring in the firewall, active firewall, port number gig 0/3. Is it clear? Subnet mask 255.0, and I'll also configure what is the standby IP. So standby is 10.1.254.11. Remember, we are performing this configuration in the active firewall. That is why we said primary there. I will explain the commands again, once again. Since it is also asking to configure the password authentication. So failover key is Cisco 123. Can configure anything, your choice. And finally, we'll enable failover. So we have also option here to hit enter, right? This failover, we have to actually enable it at the end of all the configuration, not at the beginning, so that what all configuration you have performed before, it will get copied there as well. So just make sure that you have copied you have enabled this failover command at the last. So show run. What happened? 1 second. Is it the terminal issue or firewall issue itself? Okay, maybe we have configured the failover. That is why it is taking long time. And that is where this console also got freezed. Let it come. I'll explain again what all we have configured. All right. Anyways, no active discover. All right. It seems I have lost the connection. So what all we have configured, let me show you here, show run and failover. So we're configured if displaying wise the failover it is showing at the top, but we have configured the failover LAN unit primary. So LAN is because it is the LAN interface. Failover LAN interface, I have configured the LAN name. LAN, this is just name of the LAN interface. and then which interface is going to be used for the failover, and then this is for the the authentication, and configure the failover interface IP. This is going to be the primary and this is going to be the secondary, and at the end what we have done, we have configured the failover command itself. So this is what we have configured
So
in
that
one.
this 10.1.254.10, you have configured this IP on gig 0/3.
No, we don't have to configure it. That's why I have only did no shutdown, that's all.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
you see the description LAN failover interface, it has already automatically taken.
Okay.
Okay, so this configuration we are doing under the failover, not under the interface.
Okay.
But yes, you have to specify what interface you are using for the failover. All right.
So this configuration will automatically copy to the secondary firewall.
Yes, you have to set it up. You have to set it up the firewall. So this was the configuration that we have performed in the active, but in standby we haven't performed any configuration, isn't it?
Yes.
Let's go to the standby firewall. Okay, and what I'll do is the firewall is starting. Just give me a moment. Okay, so here in this particular firewall, the configuration is empty. There is no any configuration. Show interface IP brief. So there is no any configuration. What first thing I'll do is I'll enable that interface gig 0/3 and say no shutdown, right? And then I also can configure the same commands what we have configured before. Seems some all right. So here also we'll configure failover and then LAN unit, right? There we have configured primary. Here I'll configure secondary. Okay, and then failover LAN interface. Put the name here also, should be the same, LAN F0. And gig 0/3 is going to be our failover LAN interface. Failover interface IP, what we have configured there, the same LAN and the IP address. But remember here, we will not configure the IP address like 10.1.254.11 here. No, we will still configure that your primary is 10.254.10 and the secondary is the standby is 10.1.254.11. So this command you don't have to change. This is where we make normally mistakes. So you don't have to change this command. The same command we have configured in the primary router, primary firewall also, right? And the same command we will configure on the secondary. So don't get confused that since we are configuring in the secondary firewall, so I have to configure 254.11 and then my primary is 254.10. No. So failover key Cisco 123 and at the end failover to enable it, right? So as you see here, detected an active mate. So it has actually detected the active mate. Now it will, the trust point CA certificate accepted, beginning configuration replication, from mate. So the replication, what now this standby will do, it will download all the configuration from the active. That is what it is saying. Beginning configuration replication from mate means it is replicating, right? Disabling auto import may affect smart license, creating trust points. This is the kind of a certificate, installing certificate. Trust point smart server CA is already authenticated and configuration replication from mate. All right. So if I go to interface gig 0/0, what it says, configuration replication is not performed from standby unit to active unit. Configurations are no longer synchronized as of now. So this means actually you cannot configure anything, right, in this ASA using being on the standby units. Now since this is standby, you cannot configure, although yes, it is possible to enable commands. The config will not be synchronized between devices. You can enable some commands, but it will not synchronize from the, it will not synchronize between the devices.
But in active stand, like in router or switch, we won't get a console of the standby device, right?
What do you mean by
In switch,
console? You want to
we
get
can't
the access to this?
access. Yeah, we won't get the access to the standby device in
Okay.
the switch.
What? This is the standby.
Yeah.
This is going to be your standby. Once it is done, right, it will also tell you this is the standby. Let's follow this. So for the verification, what we'll do is on active router, we'll do show failover, right? Show, not flash, sorry. Show and failover.
It's a standby device.
Yeah. So it says the failover on. Hold on. Failover unit secondary. Failover LAN interface is this up. Reconnect timeout immediately. Unit poll frequency 1 seconds. And monitored interface 3 of 61 maximum. So these are the details. This is a host secondary standby ready. So this is what secondary standby ready, right? So which means the other firewall, which means which one? Just hold on. Where is that another ENC? This one. Show failover. So the failover unit is primary and this host primary active, right? Interface outside 10.10, 10.110 normal monitored, 10.410 normal monitored, and stateful failover logical updates of configuration. So the IP address in this database, what it says is the bracket, right? Normal state of those interfaces means the IP address are simply active and standby IP addresses are configured on the interface. If you see 0.0.0 there, it means you do not have standby IP addresses. So there might be a situation where you are seeing 0.0.0.0 in the bracket. So if you are saying this, it means you do not have standby IP addresses configured on the particular interfaces. Also, the state may be different. There may be waiting, non-monitored, and normal states also, right? Since this is firewall and ASA does not monitor sub-interfaces by default, you may particular see non-monitored state very often when using sub-interfaces. Right? So
And
now
okay, question.
for the
Like,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, like let's say that if you're configuring some security policy, even from active, that means it will replicate to the standby device, right?
It will get replicate everything to the standby. Yeah, show
Yeah. So,
interface
for
IP.
example, how does it works backgroundly? For example, in VTY, sorry, in what is it? VLAN tracking protocol, there will be something called table ocean number, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So configuration item, it will increase the number and it will send it every time when there is a configuration.
Exactly. See, they monitor the actually kind of a revision, you can say the number. So if it
Okay.
is here, if it finds more, the value, then
Okay.
what we have in the standby, so it will automatically pull out the configuration. It will automatically get synchronized. So this is kind of an active role. So let's say this is now this firewall is active, right? So in this firewall, if I configure anything, what will happen? Automatically there will be triggered update, and this configuration what we are configuring, it will be replicated to the secondary.
Okay.
So show interface IP brief. If I go to the standby, let me go there. In fact, let me share the screen. I believe it is not shared. So if I run show interface IP brief, this is your standby. Okay, show failover. Uh, Show failover. And it's you see this. This is standby, and these IP addresses it got automatically replicated. Show run access list. Have we configured access list there in this standby? We haven't configured anything as of now, right?
Yes.
Show access group. For the verification, because the failover has started now. So for the verification, what I'll do, I'll configure one policy map and inspect ICMP. So if you do show run policy map,
But we hope already we have access list on the active firewall to permit all IP traffic.
sorry.
Already we have the access list configured on the active firewall.
Yes, we have configured in active, like this is your active, right? So
Yeah.
access list we have configured. Show run access list. Sure. Did we? Okay, okay.
It
My
got
bad.
rebooted, right?
Yeah, yeah, we rebooted actually, so I haven't saved it also. Let me see if I have. Anyways, so just to replicate, what we'll do is we'll configure one policy map. You see here, ICMP is not inspected as of now. Show run policy map. So under the global policy, ICMP is not inspected, right? What I'll do, I'll configure policy map. We have already verified there also. Global policy, and then the class, so class inspection and default, right? Inspect ICMP. So since this is a primary, okay, let's go to the now secondary and check show run policy map. So you should see actually ICMP applied here. So now we are making change in the active firewall, but all the configuration is getting replicate to this standby. Clear?
Yeah.
All right. So that was the verification. Now we can also configure the the access list. So let me configure the access list also here, so that at least now I should have the reachability from the higher to the lower, but from out to in won't be. So we'll configure access list out in extended permit IP any access group outside. So even if we are pinging, let's initiate some traffic from R1 ping and to 2.2 or
There's no
and
route also in firewall.
102 dot yes, there are no routes. So what I'll do is I'll configure this. So since this is the anyways this is the directly connected, so I don't need any this route for this unless and until I'm pinging the the loopback interface IP. Okay, so on standby ASA, enter if we are actually failover active to become an active device. So if I want to make now the standby device, let's first verify what all we have created here. This is standby. So show run access list. Now I see that access list has been applied, and what we have to configure now, we have to configure, let's say I want to make this firewall as an active, right? So configurations are no longer synchronized. What I'll do is I'll say failover and then active. So when I hit enter, switching to active, you see the other firewall has become the standby, and this has become now the active. So even there is no traffic. Did you see any traffic disruption here? I see one packet got dropped on the terminal here. One packet got dropped here, but rest everything is going happening fine. The communication wise, there is no in fact packet drops.
But still you have pinged the IP of the active firewall, right?
Outside, yes, not firewall, outside.
Okay, okay.
Now if we check the show failover, we should be seeing this configured on the actual firewall. I mean now the one it was active, now it has become standby. The one it was standby, after performing that command, it has become the active. Failover, this is the command to use, failover active, switching to the active. That's all. Is it clear?